Chapter 3. In Camp with the Enemy. Try as they would, the boys couldn't make the knotted ropes give, and soon the boys' hunger and thirst became a nightmare that overshadowed their desire to escape. Wekatani hurt everywhere from his beating, and his cuts were already infected. Chuma hated the thought of dying tied to a tree. He and Wekatani lay on the ground, weak with hunger, dehydration, and exhaustion. What seemed like an eternal day of torment finally blended into the night, and the boys drifted off into a fitful sleep. In the middle of the night, something woke Chuma. At first he was confused. What was happening? Then he yelled, though the sound came out more like a squeak, "Rain! Wekatani, it's raining!" Cupping their hands, the two boys caught sweet water, satisfying their thirst again and again. The shower did not last long, and soon they were both asleep again. The next morning, the clearing was still deserted. "Are the Red Caps going to leave us here to die?" asked Chuma. "No, they'll come again," Wekatani assured Chuma. "Some of their supplies are still here." The water had renewed their strength, but the hunger grew worse. As the day wore on, Chuma had a thought. He reached over and picked at the bark of the tree they were tied to. Then he began ripping off the bark as fast as he could. Termites! And grubs! Why hadn't they thought of it sooner? Wekatani helped him, and the boys popped the insects and little white grubs into their mouths as fast as they could. It took a lot of termites, but the terrible pain in their stomachs finally settled into a dull ache. Both boys hoped their meal stayed down, but it was not their last meal from the tree. 2 days went by before the Red Caps returned to camp with dozens of new captives. Men, women, and children were tied together with stout ropes. Many of the children were younger than Chuma and Wekatani. The Red Caps frequently hit the men with the butts of their guns and slapped the women and children. The younger children were wailing with fear. The Red Caps cracked real whips this time, not just vines like they'd used on Wekatani. The whips whined through the air and cracked on bare skin, raising huge welts and sometimes cutting the skin open as the people were pushed into the center of the clearing. Chuma and Wekatani stared, open-mouthed. "Look," Chuma whispered as he noticed the tribal markings tattooed on the bodies of the captives. "They're all Manganja." "You're right, and some of the men are wounded. Not gun wounds, spear." The boys watched as 2 of the Red Caps set to work attaching Y-shaped poles to the necks of the men. Each pole was about 6 feet long and branched into a Y at the end. The Red Caps put a Y around the man's neck and fastened it by driving a long metal spike through the tips of the open ends of the Y. This left the man with a huge pole sticking out in front, or to his side, or back. It made any fast movements impossible because the poles had a tendency to catch on things, giving the wearer a sharp and painful jolt in the neck. "They're making slaves of them," Wekatani said in shock. "Those poles keep slaves from running away. No one can run through the jungle with one of those things around his neck." Just then, one of the captured men spit on his captors after they'd put the Y on his neck and began kicking wildly. A Red Cap grabbed the pole and flung the man to the ground without getting close enough to be kicked or hit. Chuma stared in awe. He too had heard of this practice for controlling slaves. In fact, once he had seen a thief treated this way as punishment. When the Red Caps had attached Y-sticks to all the men, they set to work retying the frightened women together with strong ropes from one woman's neck to another, creating a human chain. Chuma counted a total of 83 captives. Several of the children couldn't be more than 5 years of age, and there were a few who were still in their mother's arms. Some of the Manganja carried personal belongings, cooking pots, water gourds, and bags probably containing cornmeal or cassava root flour. Many of the women were crying with grief and fear, their tears mingling with their children's who clung to them. But as evening approached, some of their people began trying to make the best of their situation, arranging a family space to sit down and huddling everyone together. At first, this activity created a great deal of confusion because of the women who were tied together. One wanted to go one way, and the next woman wanted to go another. Finally, things got sorted out so that they weren't continually pulling at one another's throats. The children began gathering wood for the fires, while the men stumbled around in their neck yokes, putting water and cornmeal in the cooking pots and setting them over small fires to make family porridge, nsima. With the situation under control, the Red Caps stayed back and allowed the captives to prepare their food without yelling and using their whips, except when one of the men got too near the edge of the clearing, or he might try to run away into the jungle. Wekatani and Chuma tried several times to talk to the new captives. The Ajawa language was similar enough to the Manganja language so that the boys could understand them speaking to one another. But the only response they received was angry glares. One woman close by spat on Wekatani. I know our tribes are enemies, Wekatani pouted, wiping off the spittle, but we can't hurt them. Why are they so nasty to us? I don't know, Chuma said, watching a Manganja girl in the glow of the light from the many small fires. She was about their age. We're all captives of the Red Caps. We should help each other. Yes, we both have the same enemy now. The Red Caps don't belong here. They are outsiders. Wekatani was watching the same girl. She was pretty and not tied up like the older women. When the girl looked their way, Chuma motioned to her to come over to them. She looked around to see if any Red Caps were watching, but she did not come. A few minutes later, she looked at them again. Wekatani smiled, and she smiled back. He too motioned, but she shook her head. Then she casually walked away from her people and began gathering wood near the edge of the clearing. Slowly she made her way around to the tree where Chuma and Wekatani were tied. What do you want? She asked when she was within hearing range. Water, they both said, and food, added Chuma. She walked on, picking up sticks until she got back to her family's fire. In a few minutes, the girl returned with a small gourd of water. Have they not fed you? She asked. Just a bone, said Wekatani. If this tree didn't have termites in it and a few grubs, we would have starved. The girl looked closely at the boys. You're not Manganja, she said in surprise. No, we're Ajawa, said Chuma. The Red Caps captured us 3 days ago when we were taking our village sheep to pasture. The Ajawa are hyenas, the girl snapped. They attack when one's back is turned. And she grabbed the water gourd and started to walk away. Wait, said Wekatani, why do you say that? The girl turned slightly and gave them a hate-filled stare. She spoke in a tone of deep anger. The Manganja and the Ajawa were supposed to be at peace. We kept the peace, but your people attacked us. In the dark, I did not see that you are Ajawa, or I would never have brought you water. Chuma thought fast. Their people had attacked the Manganja? He began to understand what had happened. But it was a mistake, Chuma pleaded, as the girl started to walk away again. Our people thought you had captured us. That's why they went to war with you. They knew nothing about these Red Caps. The girl hesitated. Wekatani continued. That's right. If our people had known that the Red Caps had captured us, they would have come here to rescue us. The girl faced them again, still angry. Why did the Ajawa think it was us? She demanded. Who else? said Wekatani. No, there's more to it than that, said Chuma. The Red Caps broke a Manganja spear and left it on the trail where they caught us. And they spread blood all around to make it look as if we had been killed or badly hurt, added Wekatani. But why would the Red Caps do all that? Asked the girl skeptically. We think they wanted the Ajawa to attack the Manganja, so they made it look as if your tribe had captured us. But we don't know why, Wekatani admitted. Why start a war between our two tribes? If what you say is true, said the girl, their reason is clear. They wanted to buy slaves. There are only 5 of them, so this was the only way to get many unarmed slaves. What do you mean? Asked Wekatani. We were captured by your people and taken to an Ajawa village. The Red Caps came the very next morning and bought all of us and brought us here. Bought you? With what? Asked Chuma. Rolls of bright-colored cloth, pieces of copper wire, new cooking pots, white men's things, spat the girl. Neither boy had ever seen a white man, but they had heard plenty of stories about them. Far down the Shire River, where it joined a larger river, the Zambezi, white men traveled on the water in their gigantic smoking canoes. Rumors said they had a village named Tete, many miles up the Zambezi. Slave traders, breathed Wekatani. The only source of brightly colored cloth, wire, and iron pots was white men. Often they traded those things for slaves. A new fear shone in Wekatani's eyes. Will we be sent away to the white man's land? We won't, said the girl proudly. Manganja warriors will soon rescue us. Yes, I'm sure they'll try, said Chuma slowly, pondering the situation. But they don't know where you are. They will attack Ajawa villages and take more captives in revenge. Probably sell them to the Red Caps, too, added Wekatani. The girl stared at the two boys in dismay. Then, "We might never get home,"